Hello, it's Dr. Mears. Today we are going to be factoring greatest common factor of a binomial expression. The skills of factoring and solving are very important, especially when you're taking a college level course such as intermediate algebra. So let's dive in. First, the definition. A greatest common factor is the largest number or term, and I would write and or term here because it could be both. So let's write and or term that I can divide out evenly amongst all terms and or numbers. So we're going to see that it's not only going to be a number, but it also could be a number and a variable, which is called a term. So your term, like an example would be a term like 4x, a number like -7. So when you think about it, your terms have a number and a variable, and then we just have numbers. So we're going to be able to divide out both evenly or one or the other. Let's see what happens. So first, we're going to factor out positive greatest common factors. And you may remember this back in elementary school being called a GCF, greatest common factor. And that's how I'm going to refer to it. Now, a binomial expression, it has bi, which means two. We're only going to have two terms, and it's an expression, so it's not going to have an equal sign. So I'm going to do three examples. The first example is going to be 3x plus 12. It's an expression, no equal sign. That is not a 12, that's a 2. There we go, that's a 12. And we are going to need to find the greatest number and or term that we can divide out evenly. Now, I first would like you to notice that we have a variable here, we have x, but we have no variable here. So I'm not going to be able to divide out a term because this one has no x. So notice about the variables and who has them. That's something to notice. Okay, so we don't have a variable here, so we're just going to think of a number that we could divide out of both 3 and 12. And you're right, the number is 3. So our greatest common factor, or our GCF, is 3 because that's what we're able to divide. And so what we do is we're going to write the GCF, and then we're going to put a set of parentheses because the 3 is what we're dividing out of these two things, and that's why it's called a binomial. It's because we have two terms. I shouldn't call them things, I should call them terms. So I'm going to divide out a 3 from 3x. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and I'm not dividing any x. I'm not taking an x out, so we're going to bring it down. Okay. And then we're also going to divide out a 3 from 12 because we have to make sure we're dividing it out of all the terms. And so positive 12 divided by 3 is a positive 4. Now I can write it like this, 3 times 1x plus 4, or you're going to mainly see me write it without the 1 in front of the x. So it's going to be 3 times the quantity x plus 4. All right, part B. X squared plus 5x. Okay, so notice variables first. I have two terms. It's a binomial, one term, two term. They both have an x in it. Now this x, there's no exponent shown. When there's no exponent shown, I'm going to say put your ones in. So if there's no exponent, that means it's raised to the first power because there's only one x there. Actually, there's 5 x's, but it's only getting multiplied by itself just once. Here, we have it squared. How many squared x squares? Well, we only have one. And here's where putting your ones in comes in handy. So there was no coefficient in front, so we're going to put our ones in. All right. So is there a common number that I could divide out of both 1 and 5? That's bigger than 1. No, there's not. So we're not going to have a number like we did this one. You're right. We are going to be dividing out a variable. The variable that we're going to divide out, our greatest common factor, I'm going to give myself a little bit more room here, is going to be the x with the lowest exponent because I can only take one of x to the first. I can only take one of those from here. Here's x squared. So I can take one. So we look for the lowest exponent. So if they all have variables, and they're common, you're going to look for one with the lowest exponent, and so that x to the first. So that's my GCF, that's my greatest common factor, is x to the first. So we're going to write our greatest common factor, and then we're going to set up our parentheses because we need to factor or divide it out. So I'm going to divide out an x to the first here. Now, back in the beginning of the school year, you learned about exponent rules. When we have the same variable and we're dividing, we're going to subtract the exponents, and that's why I could only take one. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So we have x to the first. And I got this 1 because I subtracted 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. Okay. I'm also going to do it to 5x because, again, we have to divide it out of all the terms. So this is really a 1 in front, remember. So 5, positive 5 divided by 1 is positive 5, and it becomes a plus 5. We're going to subtract our exponents. 1 minus 1 is 0. So it's really x to the 0. And here's the tricky thing. You could leave it like this. However, we should clean it up a little bit. And by clean it up, I mean let's remove the exponent of 1. So x plus. And now x to the 0 with a little side note, x to the 0 equals 1. That is a property. Any number or variable raised to the 0 power is 1. So this is really 5 times 1, which is 5. 5 times 1, because remember, that's 1, which is 5. So a nice clean answer would be x times the quantity x plus 5. Could you leave it like this? Yes, it's absolutely correct. It's just to clean it up a little bit, to simplify it a little bit. That's what we call it. I would definitely change that to a 1, make that 5, and take away by 1. Okay. Part C. And I see we are going to definitely have lots of practice with this. Again, it's just having you see what is coming up in our lessons, taking some notes down so you have it in your folders or in your binders. Our next one is going to be, and this is the last one for this set, 4x squared minus 16x. And if you want to try it, go for it. You can pause the video and then you can come on back because I'm going to explain it. All right, so first, do we notice the variables? Yes, we have x squared and we have x to the, you're right, to the first. Okay, we have the same variable, x. So what am I going to do? I'm going to look at the lowest exponent, and that's this one, and that's what I'm going to factor out. So our greatest common factor here is going to be an x to the first. We also have numbers. We have coefficient of 4 and coefficient of, it is a negative 16. So 4 and minus 16, which is negative 16. Is there a number that I can divide out of both 4 and 16? Absolutely. I can divide 4 by 4, and I can divide 16 by 4, and it goes in evenly. So that's my greatest common factor. So now we have a term. We had a term here, 1x, but you can definitely see that now. So we're going to put parentheses. All right, we're going to divide it out. 4x to the first. Okay, 4 divided by 4, you got it, 1. X squared divided by x to the first is going to be x. 2 minus 1 is 1. We're also going to do this to the negative 16. We're going to take out a positive 4x to the first. Negative 16 divided by positive 4 is minus 4, or negative 4 becomes a minus. X to the first divided by x to the first. We know it's going to be 0 from this one, so I just wrote 4 automatically because we know it's going to look like this, but it's going to turn to 1. And so just to make it a little bit neater without the extra step, I put it 1. You can take out those, so 4x times the quantity x minus 4. This is the nice simplified version without my 1's in it, and so that is your answer. Okay, let's do factoring out a negative number. So number 3, and we will definitely do more practice problems. I know a lot of people wanted practice problems, so we will come back to those problems. Make sure you bring the sheet with you. All right, so the first one is negative 5x plus 35. Okay, so let's notice our variables. I have a variable here, but I don't over here, so I'm not going to be taking out any variables. What number can I divide both -5 and +35? Definitely a 5. Now, because this is negative and it's the one that has the variable, I'm going to take out that -5. You could leave it in, but we really don't like when we have a leading coefficient of with a negative number, we don't like leaving that negative there, so let's factor it out. So our greatest common factor here is 5, and let's see what's going to be factored out after. -5, sorry, -5, and let's see what's going to be factored out after. Divide by 5, -5 here, -5 divided by -5 gives me a 1. Bring down the x. I'm not dividing, I don't have to subtracting exponents because I'm not dividing out a variable. And then dividing by -5 here. And this is the tricky part. Be careful because this is a positive 35 divided by a -5. And that's going to give us a -7 because a positive divided by a negative is a negative. If you're unsure, use a calculator. But what you have to remember is this is the work that you're doing. Positive divided by a negative. Calculator, excellent. Use it. It's a tool, and I love when you use your tools and resources. Okay, the next one is going to be -9y to the fourth minus 18y to the third. Oh, we got a lot going on here. Okay, so everybody can see we definitely have y's. And so we have a variable here, there's a y. And so we're going to look for the lowest exponent. The lowest exponent is the third. So that's going to be part of our greatest common factors, y to the third. Let's look at our numbers, -9 and -18, definitely taking out a negative. What number can I divide 9 and 18 by? You got it, 9. Okay, so we have our greatest common factor, so let's set up our parentheses and let's start doing some division. -9y to the third. Okay, -9 divided by -9, you got it, is 1. Y to the fourth divided by y to the third is y to the first because 4 minus 3 is 1. So remember, I'm able to subtract these two exponents. So 4 minus 3 is 1. Let's do the same for over here, -9y to the third. -18 divided by a -9 is a positive. So be careful of your signs. Negative divided by negative gives you a positive, which is our plus. 18 divided by 9 is 2. And then y to the third divided by y to the third, these are the same. So it is going to be y to the 0, but anything to the 0 power is 1, so they basically cross out. So our nice simplified answer is -9y to the third. I'm going to take these ones away just to make it nice and neat, times the quantity, y plus 2. Yay. Want to do one more? Let's do one more. If you would like to try this, you can, and pause it and come back and I'll explain it. It's going to be -x cubed plus 8x squared. Now be careful because this negative, there is a number in front here. Yes, you're right, it's a 1. So as I said before, it's good to put your ones in when we're working through a problem. All right, so you see automatically we have variables. And so the lowest, we have x and x, the lowest exponent is 2, so that's going to become part of our greatest common factor. -1 is our leading coefficient. The reason why it's called our leading coefficient is because it's attached to the variable with the highest power. This is highest. So this is the person in the lead, or the number in the lead, I should say, not the person, the number in the lead. So because this is a negative, I'm going to be able to divide this negative out, and it's just going to be a -1 because there's no other number that I can divide out between 1 and 8. So our greatest common factor is going to be a -1 x squared. What do I have left? Oh, we divide this out, -1 x squared. Negative divided by a negative, you got it, +1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. X to the third divided by x squared is x to the first because 3 minus 2 is 1. And -1 x squared divided here. +8 divided by -1 is -8. And x squared divided by x squared, yep, they're just going to cross out. It is going to be x to the 0, just like we saw. So it's just going to be -8. Cleaning this up, -x squared, the 1 disappears, times the quantity, x minus 8. These ones, again, they disappear. and now it's nice and simple and neat. I hope this video helped, doing a little bit longer than I thought, but come with it to our next class, and we're going to be doing some practice problems. Thanks. Hope it helps. Bye.